Hey, Ellie.
Yep.
Do you mind if I call you Ellie?
No, not at all, no problem.
Before we start, how are you feeling in your body?
Yeah, all right. My heartbeat's a little bit raised because of all the dancing and also adrenaline, you know?
Right, your adrenal glands are secreting the hormone into your blood, so your pupils dilate, you sweat. You're sweating, go to the middle. Clammy hands, feet.
Yeah.
Anywhere else?
Armpits.
Just wanted to check it wasn't like a low-stress situation, you know. Humdrum in the background.
No, generally I'm fine. And you, how are you feeling?
Yeah, fine.
You sure? You look a bit stressed.
So what's going on with the room?
Oh. Yeah, I like the room. It's kind of big, you know, it makes it feel safe because there's lots of room to, like, do stuff.
Yeah, there's lots of exits. That good, isn't it?
Yeah, lots of doors. Oh, look, we're kind of mirroring each other here.
Oh, yeah. If we just turn.
We could...
Tick-tock.
Kind of walking.
Bit military. War and peace.
Famous handshakes.
Stalin, Eisenhower.
Oh, the audience.
The audience.
Hi.
Hello.
How do you feel about the audience?
Well, it's a reception, isn't it?
Yeah, I like the audience.
Yeah.
It's kind of a spacing thing, you know, like we're facing this way, they're facing the other way.
Yep.
And it's like an effect, like a screen effect. Imagine we're kind of in an IMAX and it's like wall to wall, ceiling to floor, and we're just at the front of it. It's a big backdrop. Or maybe we're just in a car and there's like a windscreen.
We're in a car and it's a two-way street and I'm the driver.
Yeah, I don't drive, so...
Yeah, you're my passenger. And it's like a stylish convertible, say, a Mustang.
Oh, like a road movie.
Yeah, it's like a road trip.
Road trip! I'm actually really excited about the road trip.
Yeah, you've got this backwards cap on, I think it's round sunglasses, and the sun's beaming down, and the wind's in our hair.
Yeah,
and
although, actually, if you think about road movies, like, generally, if there are ever any women involved, they tend to be, you know, the hookers or the groupies in the back seat, and it's quite unusual for the women to be driving. I mean, you get Thelma and Louise, but they're quite tragic, ultimately, so it doesn't count. And it's a problem in cinema, you know, the representation of women.
Have you heard of the Bechdel Test?
Yes.
The Bechdel Test is a simple test for films with the following 3 criteria. It has to have at least 2 women in it who talk to one another about something besides a man. And the shocking thing is many, many films don't pass this test. A devastating number. Only 42% of films pass this test. And of that, half only pass because the women talk about marriage and babies.
Well, it's telling of a much wider problem. You know, the representation of women throughout culture.
It's history. History is the source. This repository of stories.
Well, history is made by the people who write it, so we're looking at the history of history, historiography.
Right, much like theory of theory, philosophy of philosophy, positioning outside in order to get an aerial view of a subject, where you're looking down at an idea, zooming out to get that elevated viewpoint.
Well, it's about looking at things intellectually. Do you consider yourself to be intellectual, Flora?
I would say I have intellectual capacities, but also a fear of being intellectual or coming across like I'm trying too hard
Or getting out of your depth?
or worth alienating people. But it's worth the risk because There are rewards.
Yeah. Being intellectual can be incredibly sexy.
Oh, very sexy.
Lots of other things can be sexy too. Like being slow.
Slowness as sexiness.
If you touch things slowly, then you notice more sensation, and everything turns you on.
And that is eroticism. It's powerful. We need to reclaim the erotic. It's been pornographied.
Pornographied,
Hijacked.
hijacked by the fast pace of life. I mean, if you think about it, maybe a low libido isn't such a bad thing. I mean, it is if you're bored or there's a genuine lack of interest.
The worst is when you lose interest in yourself.
Although, again, alternatively, it could be said that having a lack of desire is about reaching a place of spiritual enlightenment. Buddhism, for example, is about shedding desire. It's about the dissolution of the self.
Wait, I thought Buddhism was about finding yourself.
Oh, I think that's just a problem of different sources.
It can be confusing when you have more than one source, but we shouldn't slate confusion because it reflects how we actually see.
Right.
And it's hard when two sources appear to be competing, but if we take them both and put them here, then we can compare, and it becomes blurry, but that is information too. We perceive the world to be both blurry and in focus. We need to let go of needing to define the edges of everything. And then we can embrace what it is to not focus and appreciate life as we really encounter it.
Women tend to occupy this blurry area more than men, statistically. So linguistically, they use more words, they ask more questions, they use more qualifiers, whereas men tend to speak more in absolutes. This is gender studies.
It's linguistics.
Well, if you take linguistics, history, politics, philosophy, gender studies can be applied to all of these things. Gender studies can be slotted into all of these areas of study. It's very applicable.
What you're talking about is what is on trend.
Well, what is on trend?
What is on trend is something that's on now. It has to be on, otherwise it's off.
Absolutely, it has to be in the moment. But how do you measure that?
Quite, what is now? It's a changing entity.
It could be this century or this week.
Or this minute. We could measure trends every hour of the day.
Or it could be seasonal, like fashion, but then that's confusing because sometimes if you're just outside of fashion, you're actually ahead of the trend.
Or there's astrological trends, so planetary movements.
What about right now? How do we know what's happening right now? Okay.
Let's talk about something more concrete, like plants.
Okay.
Do you know what tropism is?
Yeah.
Tropism is the capacity of plants to adapt to their circumstances in order to obtain what they need, i.e. space, light, water, and as a consequence, they may end up looking slightly peculiar.
Plant studies is on trend.
Wait a minute, you're repeating yourself?
Well, history repeats itself. I think it's kind of natural.
Well, it's easy to come back to that catchphrase, but actually no two things are the same.
I think repetition can be useful.
Yeah, like a routine.
Yeah, like if you imagine, for example, the days of the week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Oh, and again Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, so on. You know, if we didn't have a Sunday every week, people wouldn't know when to have a rest.
Yeah, it's a break, a bit of respite.
I think people are afraid of silence, though. But I think it can be an indication of friendship or intimacy or two people feeling comfortable with each other.
The other reason people are scared of silence is they associate it with death.
People are afraid of the unknown, of what might emerge from the deep, dark void of silence, like a lake.
Black lake, black boat, two black cut paper people. Where did the black trees that drink here go? Their shadows must cover Canada.
It's a question of depth and surface. It's very easy to travel along the surface, to operate on a superficial level. A superficial conversation is easy, but it's also useful. It enables us to talk to lots of different people. You know, you can pretty much talk to anyone if you keep it light, bit of chit-chat, like, how did you get here? How's the weather? That sort of thing. Like, as opposed to, you know, hey, how you doing? Remind me, is your mother still alive? You know, that's not necessarily going to go down very well with a stranger, but I think it's also, like, important to be able to be direct with people and honest and to be able to, you know, express yourself in conversations and you know, and just to be yourself. Although that's sometimes a bit difficult because, you know, people often are telling us, you know, just be yourself, you know, just be yourself, just relax, be yourself, you know. Yeah, but like, which version of myself do you want me to be? You know, I think we all play lots of different roles in our lives, and we're changing all the time, so you can't just, like, be one thing. I mean, we all do it. If you take anyone, you know, someone, for example, named Joe, I don't know, Joe at work, or Joe at home, like, very different versions of the same Joe. Or maybe like Joe online, Joe with their lover, Joe with their child, very different versions of the same Joe. And this is good because, you know, if we didn't change, then like the child and the lover would get confused, and, you know, you actually need to change. And actually on a cellular level, we are changing all the time. Our cells are dying and replenishing themselves every single hour of the day. So we are not who we were at 6:30 this evening. And we need to accept that this change happens. And we can't think, yes, I am this thing, because that's just not true. And people do it. They're like, yes, I have this job. I am the job. I got married. I am married. Or like, I have a tattoo on my leg. I have a tattoo on my leg. No, because, like, it's going to shift. You might just get it lasered off. Like, by decision, you might change that permanent thing. Or it might just fade because you've got it on your ass and you sit down. lot. You know, that happens to tattoos. They just rub off. So what you need to think is just each moment, how do you feel? How do you feel? And just think now, in your body right now, where you are right now, how do you feel? How do you feel? Oh, and this is all good. But please tell me how you feel. How do you feel?
I'm good. I'm feeling. I'm respirating. I'm sensating. All these involuntary things just going on as I speak. You know, my lungs are working, and my kidneys are working, and my brain and central nervous system are working, and my eyes are processing light, like the rods and cones are doing their thing, and, creating images in my brain that makes it possible for me to be conscious, aware of the fact that I'm taking steps, and a one, and a one, and I know, and I know, and yeah, you take enough steps, you go, whoa, hold on. My God, is it good to be alive and well, right? My nails are growing right now. I can't feel it, and you can't see it, but we both know that's what's happening, right? And it's this body, your body's her body, and it's homeostatic, marvelousness. And it's just here we are in the room with its roof and the floor walls. And it's this unit. And here we are, together. And we're interrelating. Consciously, unconsciously, involuntarily, right? And then you step outside the room. What have you got? You've got a building. You walk outside of there. Hello, London! With its overground, its underground, and then you just blow that out, and it's whoa, England, right? With its rivers and its hedgerows and its borders. You've got borders, right? And then you take it right back down. And you pick up a leaf, and you put it under a microscope. And you're like, ooh, pattern. And then you take it out, and you're looking at it with the naked eye, and then you put it down. You're looking up, and you see a branch. And then you're moving back, and you see a whole tree. And the truth is, they're the exact same thing. And that is fractals.
Fractals. It's the same structure on a different scale, and every structure has a scale, so therefore every structure can be mapped.
But you can't take 3D and transpose it to 2D.
No, you can't take a spherical globe and accurately represent it on a flat piece of paper, can you now?
No, it warps the proportions of things.
And inevitably, information is compromised in that transition.
Now, no form of representation is perfect. Take the Greeks. They invented democracy as the least bad solution. One leader, X million number of voters. How can one person represent all of those people?
Impossible.
It's out of proportion.
And it's not the only thing that's out of proportion in this world, is it? No. I think reactions are often quite out of proportion. I mean, if we go back to the Greeks, actually, the hubris of the ancient Greek gods, it was simply anger and pride, human emotions. But it sent them mad because it was inflated. It was off the scale. Madness. But, it did give us theatre, so we kind of have to.
Of course, the Greeks would have us believe they invented myth.
Did they not?
Did you hear the one about the two girls, Lana and Clara, the goddesses of language? The story goes that as they spoke, they talked things into existence.
And without realizing the power of their words, they accidentally and tragically spoke the world to its very end. Actually, that's not a myth, we just made it up. But, yeah. Actually, while I'm here, does anyone want a coffee? Because I have, a lot of cash backstage, because my mum just died. So, rich as a pig, and willing to offer all of you coffee, if you want it.
It's important humour, isn't it? Not just for making friends and breaking ice, it's like the hand of humour reaching out, and even if the other person doesn't want to shake it, they at least understand the gesture.
Yeah, thought that counts.
Why did the old lady miss the turning? Because she was on a bicycle, and there were snakes.
Did you make that one up as well?
Yeah.
I think actually what's kind of great is when someone decides they're just going to put something out in front of the public, maybe a thought or an idea or a joke, and they have maybe a feeling of how it might go down, but you never really know. And I think in that moment there's a revelation or something of what's going on in your head. And I think it's a bit of a confession moment. It's kind of a confession of sorts. I don't know, Flora, if you like to confide in people much.
Yeah, I'd say I'm a pretty open person.
Yeah.
It gets me into trouble sometimes, actually. Oversharing with strangers.
Yeah. Well, I think probably that's more common than you think. This feeling of things being easier to say to people you don't know rather than people you do know. I don't know if anyone here, you've probably had a moment like that. I don't know, if you think about a situation let's imagine, for example, you've just found out you're pregnant. So it's big news, but at the same time you don't want to tell anyone because it's early days.
Uh-huh.
And that same day, you've arranged to go out and see loads of friends for a drink. And actually you're a bit nervous about going because you know that they're going to notice that you're not drinking alcohol, and you don't want them to ask questions because they'll have to tell them. And anyway, you're a bit nervous, but actually you go, and it's kind of fine because you get there a little bit late and everyone's already kind of drinking, and then you make sure you get your own drink from the bar, and then you do a round so no one actually knows what you're drinking, and it's sort of fine. A bit more expensive, but that's okay. And actually, at some point in the night, you go to the loo, and there's a woman in the toilet, someone you don't know, and you just get chatting, and you're quite relaxed, and she's a bit tipsy, so conversation's flowing, and there's this broken soap dispenser on the wall, and you're trying to both work out how to use it, and it's kind of a bit hysterical. And then actually, at some point, the soap dispenser does work, and some soap falls onto your hand, and you look at the blob of soap, and you're like, oh, that's weirdly in the shape of a fetus. And then you kind of remember that you're pregnant because you had actually momentarily forgotten because you were distracted. Yeah. And so actually you go a bit quiet because you're sort of a bit overwhelmed. And then this woman notices that you stopped talking, and then she says, are you okay? And you just say, I'm pregnant. And then you realize that you've told someone, and actually it feels really good because you've been wanting to tell someone, but you haven't been able to tell any of the people you know because of all the baggage, and it just feels really nice to have told anyone.
Yeah, so this Massive relief. The cat's out of the bag, and all under the cloak of anonymity.
Well, it's just because of a stupid soap dispenser, really.
Yeah, it's completely daft trigger.